So my family found themselves in the midst of an Iranian revolution in 1979. So I was about 9 at the time. And I remember the sort of the back and forth between my parents about, do we need to leave the country? Do we stay and work through this? And so they decided to leave. And my mom was able to bring all the photo albums and not much else. We had a full life in Iran, but, the thing is, we can replace all of it. We can replace the couches and the jewelry, even, whatever it is that we value so much, in terms of materialistic stuff. But you really can't replace your memories. And when I was 25, I was able to archive my own family history and stories and photographs and be able to share that with my family who live in 4 continents.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about preserving and sharing our memories through photos. I'm delighted to welcome Haleh Shoa. Haleh is the founder and CEO of Picturely, a photo organization, archiving, and design studio, and I'll include the link to the website in the show notes. Welcome, Haleh. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I am so delighted for this conversation. And as we're talking about the importance of photos, it reminds me I have a dear friend who loves to scrapbook. And she has told her children from the time that they were very young, if there's ever a fire in the house, I want you to grab the photo albums on the way out the door. And
Yeah.
she said, as long as I know that my family's okay and I have my pictures, that's the only thing that really matters because everything else can be replaced. Now, fortunately for her, she hasn't had to follow up on that, but you have. Would you mind sharing your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So my family found themselves in the midst of an Iranian revolution in 1979. And I remember the sort of the back and forth between my parents about, do we need to leave the country? Do we stay and work through this? And so they decided to leave. And by the time they actually were able to leave, we all left in stages. My brother was already in the United States. My older sister, who was 15 at the time, had to leave within a 3 days notice with a sort of a group of people who were taking teenagers out. And then my mom and my little sister were left and everyone, we were all able to take an airplane out of the country, but my mom was able to bring all the photo albums and not much else. We had a full life in Iran, but the thing is, we can replace all of it. We can replace the couches and the jewelry, even, whatever it is that we value so much, in terms of materialistic stuff. But you really can't replace your memories. So I was about 9 at the time, and sort of cut to when I was 25, and I was working in advertising, and I had access to really high resolution scanners and things like that, because that's what we did in advertising. I was able to archive my own family history and stories and photographs and be able to share that with my family who live in 4 continents. So this is like, that was the seedling of me starting and founding Picturely.
Right, because you have such personal experience with the incredible value of preserving our memories, preserving our stories. And our stories are preserved through our pictures. And then to be able to say, here, I've got the ability to be able to share this. And now realizing, oh my gosh, everybody has the same needs. We need to be able to preserve our stories, to be able to preserve our memories. So as we're talking today, I think I would love to cover kind of two different things. I bet a lot of people, when they realize that there's a professional out there who can help organize and make it untangle this mess that we have. I think most of the problem that we have nowadays is we have way too many photos and we don't know what the heck to do with them. So there'll be people who say, yes, please, I want to hire your service. What do you offer? And there will be others who say, oh, no, I love to do this. Just help me so that I can be more successful as I do it myself. So is it okay if we kind of cover a little bit of both of those aspects?
Absolutely, yeah.
All
So
right. Where do you want to
yeah,
start?
So we start every project with a family tree. So whether you're doing it yourself or we're helping you with it, make sure that you have the information of the people who you or us could find in your photo collection. So that would be, let's say, your grandmother, maybe your great grandmother. And I don't know how many generations your photos will go back, but we've had clients whose photo collection went back to the 1830s,
Wow.
which is exactly when photographs were created,
Photographs
the
started.
daguerreotypes, right? So, and sometimes it's really difficult to go back that long. And then others are really into their family trees and are really into the ancestry tree stuff and are researchers. Some people have their family tree back to the 800s. I actually know someone who has that. So, without overwhelming yourself, just concentrate on who the most important people are in your photo collection. It could just be your nuclear family and then all the parents above that. So make sure you have their birthdays, the date of passing, weddings. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because whether you're working again with a professional certified organizer, such as us, myself, is that we organize everything chronologically. So if we find something, let's say we find your grandmother's wedding photos, we want to make sure that we capture the correct date because once everything is scanned, we rename and redate the files. So, so what we do is we really take care of getting to know the family tree and understand the client goals. Again, this can be so overwhelming because we specialize in very large collections. So it can be sort of like, where do we even start? Well, we start with the family tree and gathering everything. And in terms of the analog, so by analog, some people may not know what that means. Analog are the tangible memories, which are anything you can touch and feel. The photos, scrapbooks, things in albums, the negatives, the slides, the tapes, the films that we have, various tapes. So we can manage that in our studio from A to Z. We handle all types of memories. And then we have digital, right? So we have our Apple Photos, Google Photos, Amazon, Dropbox, oh my gosh, Shutterfly, which I call the prison of our, it's the photo prison. It's really hard to get stuff out of Shutterfly. But so we do specialize in both types of memories, whether it's analog or digital. So if you are tackling this yourself, always start with the albums, which is where we start as well, because the albums and the scrapbooks have a semblance of a curation to them. They were nicely curated or not nicely curated, but somebody did go through that roll of 24 or 36 photos and said, I want to put these in an album. So there's a reason why they ended up in the album. There's always sort of a theme to it or a timeline to it. So it really helps us, and it would help you to start there. I've gone through all the mistakes with my own collection, starting with the loose photos, which was really overwhelming. And the loose photos are typically the duplicates and the duds. And by duds, I mean like the blurry stuff, or perhaps you took 3 or 4 pictures of, people smiling and you ended up choosing the best of to put it in the photo album. So starting in the photo albums is the best place. And scrapbooks, you mentioned scrapbooks of your friend. I typically recommend for scrapbooks to just be scanned as is, the pages. You don't need to take it apart. You've already, took so much love and time and patience to put them together, whether for yourself or for your children. So you just scan those exactly as they are. And at least you know that they're preserved, right? And then with digital, I would also recommend gathering everything first, which is exactly what we do. So downloading everything, get a really nice 4 terabyte external hard drive. They're super, super cheap and cheerful these days on Amazon. And download everything from Dropbox, from iCloud, Amazon, wherever your photos are. And then you can start organizing it. So, and going through it and taking out the duplicates and things like that. The process is very long and very technical. So, which we won't be able to get into here, but definitely we have a coaching program, and of course for some of the highly technical DIYers, but we can also help them with help whoever's listening with being able to tackle this on their own or take parts of it on.
Wow, that's fascinating. So I mentioned two possibilities. One, do it yourself, and two, have you do it. And it sounds like you have a third option, and that is that you can train me and I can have that service where you can help me go through so that it's more than just a half an hour. Here's a suggestion, or like reading an article. It's okay, here's what to do next. Here's what to do next. Okay, so I'm imagining I've got all my stuff. And I loved you gave me a couple of hints about where we can go wrong and where we can make some mistakes. And one of them was working through the loose photos. And I'm guilty of that. I've got some of those where I've gone through and picked some of my favorite things, put them in an album. But there's something about a picture. Sometimes it's just hard to throw it away, even if it's blurry,
So
even if there's only whatever. And so I hang on to those. And occasionally when I'm looking, trying to find something, I'll look through these, I'll look through those. And I don't really have a lot of success in the ones that I've already gone through. Do you recommend that we throw those away?
I give all my clients permission to throw any, photos away. Um, there's definitely different scenarios. We had a client who had scrapbooks from his grandfather who just passed last year at 102, and he served in World War II. And he ended up in Germany, and he was part of the sort of the what we I don't know the technical term, but I say he was part of the Liberation Army. But so he ended up going through many different villages in Germany, and he did a scrapbook of all the different villages. He bought a postcard and he did a scrapbook. Well, the family didn't really care to archive that, and they didn't really want to throw it away either. So I called the Holocaust Museum in Los Angeles, and they were really interested. So we ended up donating the scrapbook to them instead of throwing it away. So it depends on what you have in your collection. Maybe a historical society might want some of the older photos that you may not know who the people are. I know my husband and I go to a lot of flea markets, and we see a ton of old photos that a lot of designers now purchase to sort of decorate people's homes and, different businesses. So you could, really donate them. You could even look on eBay, and you can see that some of these really old photographs are being sold, even though like we don't know who the people are in them. So there's some options of not throwing them away that would make you feel a little bit better on at least this is going into someone else's hands. But in terms of like the photos from 80s and 90s, that is really where we have a lot of photos. I equate that to what we have in digital right now because film was cheap, processing it was really inexpensive. Many places would say, process with us and you'll get up to 4 prints, 3 extra prints for free. So we end up with so many duplicates. And, that's when the guilt comes in, is like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? But know that once things are digitized and they're preserved properly in a digital format, first of all, that digitized format is going to be a way better quality than that 4x6 print. So, you could share that out with your family members, in terms of not worrying about sparsing it out between different family members, which we do as well. I have a lot of clients who say, I have a pile for my sister, I have a pile for both my daughters, and I'm just going to send them their stuff. I don't need to scan any of this. And that's totally fine too. So it all depends on the goals of our clients and how deep the collection goes, meaning how many generations before and how wide it is. So do you have your grandmother's stuff? Perhaps your grandmother was the one that gathered all her siblings' stuff too. So that goes wide, right? So we do a lot of what we call clan photo collections where, you could have a ton from your grandmother's siblings and their kids, and you don't necessarily want to throw those away, but we get them involved. And, a lot of times they actually end up paying for some of the services. So, so that all, we can discuss all of that in the complimentary session that we provide to all the listeners. I provide a 20-minute complimentary session that they can book on our website, and we can talk about what their goals are and what they have and how to move forward.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because I think for a lot of people, you've mentioned a couple times that there's a theme or a goal. And I would you give us a couple of examples of someone's themes or
Sure.
goals? People come in from all sorts of different scenarios. And I love that you brought up, I've got my grandmas, I've got my cousins, I've got my uncles, I've got all this stuff that I need to figure out what to do with. Or sometimes it might just be, I've got me and my 15,000 photos that I've been taking and storing up on Dropbox, and I don't know what to do with it.
We
And
have all, yes, absolutely.
right.
And
So,
you bring up such good points, because we've had clients that, of your last scenario. I have a mom right now. She's a divorcee and she has two daughters, and she's like, I want to enjoy my photos. It's not necessarily for, I want to go through. And yes, I do, even though I'm divorced, I do want to scan my wedding album, because those are my kid's father. So, and what are her goals? Her goals are to be able to pass it on to her kids. Another person we have, my client who has photos going back to the 1830s, never married, no children. She wants to just make sure her entire collection is archived. Perhaps she will donate them to a historical society. Perhaps she will sell all the daguerreotypes that she has, because now they're valued at $20,000 a piece. Believe it or not, those things are really, really valuable, those old photographs. So, so again, we come up with different scenarios. Maybe you don't want to pay to scan everything, but you want to archive it, meaning you want them nicely organized in an archival boxes. But you don't want to pay to scan it all. You just want to scan you and your husbands or wives or whatever, and your parents' stuff and your grandmother's stuff. But then everything else can go in the archival box, and you can worry about that later. So it really depends on their budget and how they want to enjoy it. There's a lot of scenarios where I sort of sense the tech savviness of our clients, so that I can provide them with an option at the end, a platform that they can manage on their own. So there's two or three different platforms that we sort of house the photos after we're done with the project. We make private family websites, and those are a little bit more difficult to maintain, but they're gorgeous. They're beautiful, easily shareable with larger families. And then there's a platform called Forever, which is great. Um, that's more in line with like a Shutterfly type of a platform, but they don't imprison your photos. You can easily get them out and share them. And then there's another platform called Mylio that we are certified in as well. And that platform is great for people who don't want their stuff in the cloud. So, and we have clients in all the different scenarios that I just mentioned.
wow, so many options. That is
I know.
beautiful and amazing. So you mentioned a word about let's see, an archival box. Are we talking like a physical box?
We
Are we
are.
something? Okay, can you explain that to me? Because I don't know what that is.
Yes, an archival box is asset free. I mean, the technical parts of archival boxes is pretty long, and admittedly, I am not an expert to talk about what to look for necessarily, but we get most of our materials from Archival Methods, archivalmethods.com. That's sort of our go-to expert box. And they have so many different types of plastic housing and boxes and portfolios and things like that. And but yeah, we make sure no matter whether it's digital or it's analog, everything is housed in an archival solution. So we make sure that our clients are receiving an external hard drive. We coach them through how to back that up and how to practice the 3-2-1 method, which is 3 copies of your memories in 2 locations, one off site, and the 2 locations could be online. So we always come up with an online solution for our clients, so that's already taken care of. But making sure that the external drive that we give them is copied, and we can give them 2, of course, and so they can give one, put one in the bank. um, but yes, all the analog memories, typically the analog memories that we end up scanning goes into these archival boxes because we don't scan everything we receive. There's so many duplicates and duds in our client photos. For example, what do I call a dud? Let's say you went to Hawaii and you took a ton of photos of the sky and the ocean and the whale coming out of the water, whatever it is. And, we sort of coach our clients that we want to keep the photos through the lens of what your grandchildren would want to see. So what is really telling your family story? Well, it's not really the sky and the ocean of Hawaii. Or say you took your kids to the zoo. We get this in every decade from the 40s until now. You take your kids to the zoo and you end up taking so many photographs of the animals, and nobody really cares. A giraffe is a giraffe. Unless you are a landscape photographer and you had a really amazing camera and you went to Africa and took these stunning shots, then of course we want to keep those. But otherwise, those do not go into archival boxes, and they probably won't be scanned.
That is excellent. And if we think about that and recognize that, that can actually help us maybe be a little more discerning in what we take a photo of so that we
Exactly.
don't feel quite so overwhelmed when it's time. Okay, so I'm going to ask another question. So the archival box, we're talking about actual physical photographs, and maybe are you talking like a flash drive or a whatever,
Mm-hmm.
some physical thing in a box? And to protect it, and I loved how you explained 3, 2, 1, so that you
Yes.
can protect it under any circumstances, because it's breaks your heart when you've done all this work and you put all this stuff on your computer and then your computer dies, or you've saved and organized and put it on
Right.
a flash drive and it got lost or something. So you're saying 3 copies in 2 locations, and one of them is not here with you.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So for your listeners, I have composed a 7-step guide to archiving your photos. They can sign up by going to my website, picturely.com/podcast. If they sign up and they mention your name and your podcast, they will receive this guide. And in there is also a link to the 3-2-1 method. So, and along with all the materials that we use, there's a lot of great nuggets in that guide for them to be able to get inspired or perhaps even start their own, organizing and archiving their own collection.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. So 7 steps, and this sounds like kind of a do-it-yourself. This is information you can give me so that I know what to do through those
Yes,
7
that's
steps.
right. I mean, it's definitely more food for thought and more understanding the breadth of what it takes to really archive your collection. I always tell if you do want to take this on your own, make sure the first thing is to pack your patience. It takes a long time to do this. you know get your family members involved. Like, it's really fun to talk to the elders in the family and to get some information from them. They love it. They're unemployed and they are ready to take your call. They love getting involved. I mean, that's, to me, that's my favorite part, is to ask my clients if there's any elders in the family that we can sort of contact and learn more from them. I think that's a really wonderful thing. It just brings so much joy to them, and also a lot of information to the whomever it is that's doing the collection. Make sure you stay curious. Curiosity is a huge part of doing your collection, especially if it's people you don't know. So but hopefully you have access to the elders and, to some of other family members where you can learn more about the question marks.
Wow, that's fantastic. So stay curious and pack your patience. Now, what you're describing here sounds like I'm just taking on this monumental task of kind of organizing my family history through photos. And if that feels just way too overwhelming, and my goal is just to be able to organize all the stuff I've got on my Google Photos, are there any tips to kind of simplify that or?
Yeah, I have I have a lot of little tips and tricks on digital stuff. So we can take a step back. So we have a really powerful tool in our hands. Most of us have this called a mobile phone. It's smartphone. Our smartphones take really great photos. So just like we used to take good care of our cameras, and we used to always put the lens cap on the lens right after we were done with it, or the camcorder. I want to make sure that people who are taking photos are intentional with the way they take photos. Make sure you clean the lens on your phone, because your phone is in your purse, it's in your pocket, it's your fingers are all over it. Maybe your kids have access to it and their fingers are all over it. But there's two camera lenses on your phone, one for selfies, which is on the front of your camera, and one that's on the outside of the camera. Make sure you clean those, even with your t-shirt, your jeans, whatever it is. You just wipe that before you take photos. Make sure you're, again, be intentional. I know it's really hard to take photos of little kids because they're always moving around. Make sure you take lots of photos of them, but go through it and delete the ones that you don't want to keep. I think what happens is we take a lot of photos and we just don't go through our photos and delete them. One sort of strategy in doing this without getting super overwhelmed is take a date, whatever date you're listening to this, and whatever year it is, go through the photos from that day and year, and then go to the year before, and then go to the year before that. And within maybe half an hour, you would have done all the day's photos of all the years that you have in your camera. And try and do that. One of the another strategy is, let's say you're waiting in line, groceries, whatever. I know a lot of us love social media and we doom scroll. You get on, whatever it is, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Next thing we know, 45 minutes have gone by. Instead of doing that, open up your photos and do what I just said. Just one day a week, instead of going on Instagram or Facebook, say, you know what, today's the day I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go on my photos and go through all the years of today's date. Instead of deleting, you could start hearting. Make your favorite photos a favorite. You could click on every platform has a way that you can favorite a photo. And that way they'll be organized at least in an album that's called your favorites. And you'll be able to easily find them. All of the platforms also allow you to name the people in the photos. Now, while I love that, one thing to know is that you could go through and name all your family members and everything, but the information the effort and information that you put into that is not embedded into the photographs. So let's say Google Photos, you go ahead and name all the videos and photos that you're with your name and your husband and your kids and your whoever else. Once you download those photos to back them up, that information is just stuck in Google Photos. It doesn't get downloaded with the photos, which is why in our studio, we make sure we download everything. And we use a completely a separate process, which is extremely technical heavy. We use a program called Lightroom and then 17 other programs in order to organize and embed keywords into the photographs and videos. That stays with the photographs and videos forever.
Well, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated the tips you shared. In fact, I'm going to repeat a couple. because I love being able to break things down into bite-sized chunks. When we're
Yeah,
talking about this job, and it can feel so overwhelming that people won't take the first step. And so if we can have the courage and the know-how to take a first step, then the second step is not quite so terrifying. So I love that you suggested, let's just take, let's say today's date, and I'm just going to clean up today's photos. And then using that date, you said, well, let's clean up last year's photos from this date and the year before's from this date. And it's not so many because my phone only has a few years of storage, really. And I can do that. And I can do that. And I can walk away when I'm done and say, hey, I did something today. Or breaking it into a manageable chunk and say, hey, for 30 minutes, I'm going to organize my photos. I can handle 30 minutes. Or I even really love the suggestion of that downtime when I'm standing in line and my natural instinct is to pick through my phone and I'm going to scroll through something. Why not scroll through my photos and use this as a chance to get rid of some of those duds and duplicates? And yes, it took me 5 tries to get a picture of that child because he was moving, but one of them, I got him holding still. So it's okay. And I have permission to get rid of the other 4 and
that's right.
just kind of break it down into a little bit smaller. And then if I can do that, then when I go to look at it, it's not as overwhelming. I appreciate that. And the warning that when we put the information in there, it doesn't transfer when we download. And if we want all of those features, it takes some extra know-how. And so I appreciate someone like you with the know-how and the, the programs to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Another strategy for those who just want to sort of organize and clean up their phone photos is, I know this to be true for iPhone, but not Google Photos. The Google Photos doesn't really easily give you access, but in iPhones, if you hit album and go all the way down, you'll notice that you'll see duplicates. They've just, if you are updated to the latest iOS, your phone is actually going through and finding all the duplicates for you, which you highly recommend. Just trust it, clean out your duplicates because they're exact duplicates. And then you could go through your screenshots. So a lot of people unintentionally take screenshots by mistake. Or let's say you took screenshots of, motivational stuff, things that you see, reminders, quotes. This is what we see a lot of, and, mistakes, quotes. It could be recipes. A lot of people take pictures of recipes. So I highly recommend putting those in albums, just so you can have them somewhat organized. All your recipes are, if you really want to keep a recipe and really access it, don't just take a photo of it. Take a photo of it and put it in an album. So you have an album called recipes. So you can actually, you're not just unintentionally taking a photo. Be intentional with it, right? A lot of us take slow-mo videos and time-lapse videos totally by mistake. Go through those and delete them. They take a lot of space, not only on your phone, but you're paying for cloud storage. They take a lot of space in the cloud as well. So make sure you clear those out. And then, yeah, and so the iPhone gives you different categories, so it's much, much easier to clean it up that way as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for helping it to be accessible, even for many of us in the palm of our hand. It's like, I can do that. And here's a tool that's going to help simplify. Oh, I appreciate that. Haleh, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. Is there anything else you want to make sure that we cover today before we close?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people get excited and know that there is a service out there that can help them. Just be excited, be curious, definitely go through your photos. Make sure your photos are backed up. The last thing I'm going to say is there's a big difference between backing up and syncing. Hopefully, whatever you have in your hand, your photo is synced to some cloud service. And the sync means that if you delete it on your phone or in the cloud, it's gone. It's deleted. It's in the trash can. Some services are up to 30 days, others are up to 90 days. So, but it's synced. So it's a two-way highway. but backing up is a one-way highway where you download your stuff, you own it, you can back it up on different external hard drives. So understanding that is really important as well.
Wow. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. I appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by E. Welty, who said, "A good snapshot keeps a moment from running away." Today, I invite our listeners to keep their moments from running away by preserving and organizing our photo memories. See you next time on Linda's Corner.
Thanks for listening. Please share and subscribe to help us reach new listeners. And if you'd like to heal your life from the inside out, there is a free video series at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. Just click on the free stuff tab. I also invite you to grab a copy of one of my books, like Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. See you next time on Linda's Corner.